Awesome. Well, guys, I just want to give you a heads up that I'm recording this just for future use. So I hope you guys don't mind that. And yeah, I'd appreciate if we can hold most of the questions till the end. I originally had thought that this would be 90 minutes, but George was saying that we only have like an hour. So what I'm going to try to do is compress it to like 45 minutes so that we can, that we can take at least 15 minutes for questions, but I'm happy to stay longer. People want to continue to chat about this. I think it's going to be hopefully pretty mind-opening and pretty generate some awareness for you guys. And I really appreciate George and you guys for coming and the opportunity to chat with you. This really means a lot to me. I just want to emphasize a couple of things before we begin. The first thing is that a lot of these things are very unconventional or out of the box or just go against what normal people are doing. And so I need you to have an open mind. And I guarantee you that some of the things that you see here or you hear are going to make you feel anxious or defensive or possibly even angry. And so I just want you to know that that's normal, but the more that you can have an open mind, the more likely it is that you're going to benefit from these things. The other thing that I just want to ask, and again, it's not a requirement, but I'm going to do this right now myself. I'm going to put my phone on airplane mode and get it out of my kind of reach. If you do that, I believe you're really going to get a lot more out of this and be much more present. And we can talk a little bit about the psychology behind that later. If you don't want to put your phone on airplane mode or that's terrifying to you, then this presentation is exactly for you. So I want you guys to know that there's no catch here. I'm not trying to do anything tricky. There's no new software you have to buy. There's no new systems you have to learn. There's no catch. If you just have an open mind, I really feel like you're going to not only get one day back per week, but also improve your mental health dramatically. The first thing I want to do is an activity with you guys. I'm just going to give you 60 seconds. And here's the activity. I don't want you to think about this too much. I'm only giving you a very limited amount of time on purpose. But if you have a piece of paper and a pen, ideally in front of you, you can write it down. That would be ideal. Otherwise, you can just think about it. But what I want you to do over the next 60 seconds is think about the most impactful or memorable or happiest moments in your life, your whole life. Top three moments for you. You have 60 seconds. And you're not going to share these with the group, so they can be as personal as you want. Give you guys about 20 more seconds. All right, so we'll keep going here, but you do not have to tell me the specifics of your three activities or memories or whatever they are, but can anybody share with me what a possible common theme amongst all of them is for you?
Family experiences.
Okay, love it. Yep.
Family.
Travel. Yep, absolutely. And so what I think you'll find, what most people find, is that generally the most impactful or memorable or happiest moments in your life involve other people, and they don't fucking have anything to do with technology. They involve the other humans and relationships that we have in our life. And I really want you to keep this in mind as we go through the presentation. It's the whole reason why I have created this program and have done all this research on this stuff, because I think that if we don't keep in mind that humans are the most important thing in this world and not technology, a lot of other things, incentives and things kind of get lost along the wayside. There's two parts to this activity. In order to make it short, I'm going to have us just do the second part. What I want you to do is write down 3 to 5 adjectives of how you feel on a shitty day at work. Like when work isn't going well, it's a bad day, write down 3 to 5 adjectives of how you feel. And if you guys are open to it, if you could share some of the adjectives with me, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
I wrote
Tired, lost, worn, stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Short-tempered is another one.
Short-tempered. Okay.
Angry, blaming, and powerless.
Okay.
Run over.
Run over. So it's a lot of people say some variations of this, right? Like stressed, tired, exhausted, frazzled. You know, a lot of what you're saying, those are similar adjectives to, you know, they're all kind of conveying the same thing. And what I'm here to explain to you today, and hopefully you'll believe this by the end of the presentation, is I truly believe that a huge reason why you feel this way is not only how much you are using technology, but the way you are using technology. It's not just how much, it's also the way you're using technology. And I will show you with a lot of science and studies by the end that if you just change some things, you can have so many fewer days where you feel like that. Here are my goals for you guys today. I want to give you as many good days as possible at your work and as few bad days as possible, like the ones you just described. I'm also going to let you see behind the curtain of the tech world and let you understand what's happening to you and your family and everyone else every single minute of every single day, whether you like it or not. It's happening to us all the time. I really believe that if you follow all the things that we have here in this presentation, you're going to get one full day back each week. But I also hope that if you adopt these practices, you're going to positively impact your life, improve your mental health and well-being, reduce stress, and most importantly for me, restore human connection. Those are my goals for you today. Now that sounds like a lot, but I really believe this is possible. Let me just give you a quick story here. For those of you that don't, so like this is a picture of me, little Robbie K, when I was in about 8th grade. I obviously have put on a few lbs since then. And that's my dad. He's 6'7". I'm not just super short. He's just really, really tall. And so this is a picture of me right before I entered high school. And that period of time for me was really difficult because I had super bad acne, like really, really bad. It was so bad that I had to take Accutane, which is the strongest acne medication, twice to get rid of it. And one year for the school yearbook, I didn't even go to get my picture taken because I didn't want people to remember my face that way. And so that was a very traumatic experience for me. And I think what that did is it really made me develop socially much slower than other people because I wasn't self-confident because I didn't want people to look at me. And one of the things, though, kind of as a side effect that happened was I actually became addicted to video games. Now, this was in the mid 90s when like no one even had a computer at home, let alone access to the internet. But I had a internet-based computer in my bedroom. And so I ended up playing video games super late into the day until like midnight, 1, 2 a.m. on school nights. And I kept doing that until my dad found me a couple nights in a row doing this. And then he, made me get rid of the game so that I couldn't play it anymore. But when I tell you guys that, this technology stuff is very personal to me, it's because I had an experience being addicted to technology way before even anyone had these kinds of technologies and before it was even popular in society. So this is a very personal issue for me that I've already experienced at a very young age. Now, I say that I have a quote degree in biology, psychology, sociology, and technology. The reason that I say that is because there is no formal degree in what we're talking about today. It doesn't exist. This is an actual picture of my bookshelf on the left here. And I haven't read all these books, but I've read the vast majority of them, most of them in the last 3 to 4 years. And they're almost all related to this topic, related to these 4 different areas. And this is why I think that this perspective is so unique, because a lot of people are focusing on only one of these, but the combination of all of them together is not something that people are paying attention to. And that's why I think there's so much value here. The other thing is that this notebook is on the right is number 28. I take a ridiculous amount of notes. I usually go through about 1 notebook a month in trying to assimilate thoughts, take down some notes, understand what I'm reading. And so I have really dedicated the last 3 to 4 years of my life to understanding this topic. And I'm trying to summarize all that research for you in about 45 minutes today. So when I started researching this 3 or 4 years ago, I was trying to figure out what is the problem here in the United States? What is happening to life in the United States? Now, clearly we have a rising obesity epidemic. That's not very surprising. That's been happening for 2 decades now. But there's also other things that are more recent that are happening to mental health too. So you can see that these are mental health symptoms or depressive symptoms for kids, high school students, and they were actually going down and improving until about 2012. Well, guess what happened in 2012? That was the year when smartphone penetration reached 50% in the United States. And so now that's correlational, not causational, but I think you'll see by the end of this that it's pretty clear that it was causational. It's just really, really difficult to prove. But you can see that these mental health, this mental health crisis is just skyrocketing. And you might think, okay, well, maybe that's just teens, but no, actually, the US suicide rate has increased every single year since 2000. And that's the rate, not the absolute number of suicides. And so of the most developed countries in the world, we now have the highest suicide rate of any country in the developed world, which is really, really sad. And now so let's say you're just looking at overall quality of life. There's a study done by this nonprofit called the Social Progress Imperative. And I think I actually have mentioned this on a previous 150 call. But over the last 10 years, they've measured overall quality of life in countries. In the last 10 years, 160 of the 163 countries measured improved their quality of life over the decade. Guess what? The United States was one of 3 countries that had a worse quality of life over a decade. Not only did it get worse, it declined the most of all 163 countries. The most in the world. So clearly we are not doing something right here in the United States. All these politicians want you to think that the world in the United States is getting better. It's fucking not. I don't know how, it doesn't matter how many different ways you measure it. It's not getting better. And we have to do something about this. I believe that the reason is this is shown on this graph. So here's what, now, it's not the sole reason for this, but I think it's all integrated into a lot of different things in our life. Here's what this graph is showing. There's a lot of numbers. You don't need to read them all. I'll just summarize for you. From Q1 of 2018 to Q1 of 2020, average number of smartphone minutes used per day went from 2 hours and 22 minutes to 3 hours and 46 minutes a day. That's a 59% increase in 2 years. And by the way, that does not include coronavirus. That is pre-coronavirus. So think about that. In 2 years, we now use our smartphones 59% more. Extrapolate that for a second. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that in even 5 years, we're basically going to be using smartphones every single minute of every single day. Now, you might say, okay, well, what if we were just using smartphones more and then using other stuff less? Well, that would be a great thought, and that you would hope that that would be true, but it actually isn't true. Total media time, which does include a little bit of radio, but not that much, has increased 11% over the last 2 years. So we now spend, on average 12 hours and 21 minutes a day in front of media, per day average. That is mind-blowing, mind-blowingly bad. Half of all hours in the day and the vast majority of waking hours in a day are now spent in front of screens and other media. This is super fucked up. So you might ask yourself, well, like, what is the implication? Here is what I think the problem is from a work perspective, okay? Here's why I'm very worried about what's happening with your job or your business. This chart is from a 2012 McKinsey study. So like very reputable company, obviously, who did this study. What they tried to do was understand how the average knowledge worker spends their time in a week. And again, this is from 2012. This is like before smartphones were super popular. So I guarantee you that this is worse today. I just don't know what it is because they haven't redone the study. But what this shows is that we spend 28% of our week answering email, 19% searching for information, 14% of our week communicating and collaborating, and only 39% of our week doing our fucking job, role-specific tasks. So what this means is the average knowledge worker is spending 61% of their week doing fucking busy work bullshit that doesn't matter or provide value. 61% of their week. 61. Think about that. How many hours are you and your staff wasting? It's literally the majority of a week. Literally. It's insane. So I think, guys, that, this is, if it isn't clear to you already, I believe that, if this phenomenon is unchecked, this is literally the greatest threat to humanity we're going to see in our lifetime. I mean, we can either decide to be controlled by technology or we can control it. Most people today are choosing to be controlled by technology. And I'm here to hopefully generate some awareness for you today and help you understand how you can take back control of your life to not be controlled by all this bullshit. Because this is really what's happening to everybody all the time, every day. Now, what I'm going to do is go through 8 different solutions here that I have all personally implemented myself. So I want you to know that the things that I'm saying are not like hypothetical. They're not like, oh, these are, some nice things to do. I personally have done them all myself, and I know that they work. That's how I know that they're so effective. I also want to emphasize to you that all these solutions are totally reversible. So if you tried something and you're like, you know what, after a week that doesn't work for me, you can just reverse it. It's not like it's going to break your company or cause irreparable harm or something like that. They're really easy to reverse, so you're in complete control of how much or how little you want these to be a part of your workflow in your life. The other thing I want to emphasize is that, these solutions are about balance. They're not, I'm not saying that if you, implement all of these, that there aren't some trade-offs. Yes, you're not going to be quite as responsive. Yes, there's going to be an occasional email that you might miss, but I guarantee you that the benefits of doing these things will far, far outweigh the potential downsides. The other thing is that I'm presenting some extreme examples of solutions. There are many different ways to kind of, do steps or a different version of these solutions so that they're not as extreme, and maybe you can get more comfortable with those first. So I just want you to know that it's not an all or nothing thing necessarily, but I'm just showing you that in an extreme example, here's how much time you could save. So solution number 1 is establish standards of communication. There's a lot of writing on here. You don't need to read it, but this is an actual document that I had when I owned my U-Break iFix stores, and it did talk about all the standards of communication that I expected from my employees to my clients, and then me to them. And it really set the ground rules for everything. If you don't have expectations for communication with your staff, that's similar to a chef preparing a dinner for you without knowing anything about what foods you like or how many courses you want, or if you have any allergies to anything. That's silly, of course. So the absence of standards of communication force employees to guess how and when they need to communicate, which dramatically increases stress and burnout. Let me give you an example from an email book that I love, and this is applicable to everybody, and no one really gets this. So, for example, email senders, which are generally your clients for your business, don't expect a response on average for 24 hours. But email receivers, which are generally you or your employees, expect to respond to an email within 4 hours on average. So this massive disconnect makes everyone think that they need to answer emails very obsessively and to the minute, when they really don't. But that one thought of, oh, I need to answer this email immediately or the client's going to freak out, completely changes how you work for everything, because now you're chained to your inbox and you basically have to live in the inbox. And as we'll see in a little bit here, that is super detrimental to mental health and productivity. But just knowing that one simple fact and communicating that to your employees could dramatically change how they do their job. Dramatically, just this one thing. So let's go to solution number 2, disable almost all phone notifications. And what that means for me, at least personally, is I've disabled everything except for phone related stuff, like when I get a phone call, obviously, texts, and then anything travel related. So my Southwest app tells me if my flight's delayed. But basically anything else is completely disabled, everything. And so here's the science behind this. So by the way, guys, when I have these science slides, there's one after each solution. All these studies they're almost all peer-reviewed studies that have been, in psychiatric journals or other, reputable companies or things like that. I don't have them cited because I haven't taken the time to do it, but I'm happy to provide the information for you if you really want them. But here's the data behind this, right? So 2019 studies show that the average smartphone user gets 63.5 notifications per day. That's one notification every 15 waking minutes. So literally from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, the average person is interrupted 4 times an hour by their phone. And for some people, it's probably way worse. And this is not just relevant for smartphones, but this is really the key to a lot of the reason why you feel like shit. Let me explain. Smartphones, when we get these notifications or when we check email or when we get other stuff like a Slack notification, all these things, these technological notifications activate our sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight system that prepares us to survive in an adverse situation. So let's take this as an example. Imagine you're at home chilling at night. It's 9 p.m. You're watching TV with your significant other, and then someone breaks into your house and holds a gun to your head. Obviously, that would be super terrifying, right? But what happens in that situation is you get super amped up, right? You're like, oh my God, there's this person holding a gun to my head. I have to get out of this. And so your sympathetic nervous system jacks up your body so that you can survive. Well, that same system is activated every single time you get a notification, whether it's an email, a smartphone notification, a Slack message. All of those activate this system over and over and over throughout the day. And here's the key part here, though. Your nervous system needs 20 to 30 minutes to fully downregulate and recover every single time this system is activated. So guys, do the math. This is why we are in a constant state of stress and anxiety from technology. This is why we feel like shit and we're nervous all the time and anxious all the time, because this sympathetic nervous system is continually activated and we're never giving ourselves a break. It's like we're running a technological marathon every single day without stopping, which is totally ridiculous, but that's what almost every person is doing all the time. So solution number 3, cut out the news. Can anybody guess how many minutes on average a person spends looking at news across all different sources in a day, which includes TV, online, newspaper, all that? How many minutes do you think?
2 hours.
Yeah, that's what I say as well.
It's a good guess. So it is 70 minutes a day. And that was a 2010 statistic, one of the more recent ones that I could get. I'm sure it's more today because more online news. But guys, here's why this is super bad for you. Super bad, super bad. The business model of the news companies is spreading fear and anxiety. Here is why it works. 5,000 years ago, when we were on the plains, right, and a lion would attack you, you had to pay attention to negative news or negative information because it was a survival mechanism. If you didn't hear about a lion potentially attacking you, you could die from it. And so humans as a whole are hardwired to pay more attention to bad than good as a survival mechanism. And that's a good thing for our genes and evolution, right? Well, the news companies know that. And so did you ever notice that most of the news stories are fucking negative? It's talking about murders and the stock market's down and coronavirus and all negative shit, because they know that the more negative the information, the more you will pay attention, which generates more advertising dollars and makes them more money. So you are being exploited every single time you watch the news because they know that negative shit gets attention and they are capitalizing on that. So your mental health is declining when you watch the news because that makes the news companies more fucking money. Now, if you don't believe me, here's a study. People watched just 3 minutes of negative news in the morning. They were 27% more likely to report their day as unhappy 6 to 8 hours later, a whole day later, compared to a group that watched positive content. 3 minutes. That's not even watching. That's 1/10 of one news segment, guys. So like, think about how many people are putting themselves in a shitty mood every day in America because they're watching news in the morning. It's mind blowing how many people are doing that. Mind blowingly bad for you. Solution number 4 is time block your calendar. You don't need to read like the individual, the blocks that I have here, but you can see where there's this arrow that I have every day. And this is just the way that I do this. There's a lot of this. We could talk about this topic for an hour in and of itself. But one thing that I have done, and this has been one of the most impactful things for me to get more stuff done, this and one of the solutions later is probably responsible for like 80% of my productivity gains, I would say. But every single day from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. until infinity, forever, during the week, I have 8 to 11 a.m. blocked off my calendar. And what it says is GSD, which stands for get shit done. So what happens during the GSD time? I do not check my email. I repeat, I do not fucking check my email. I do not schedule meetings. I don't schedule calls. If someone calls me, even my dad, I don't answer, which he actually doesn't like, but I don't care. I just spend that time doing the most important thing for the day. It could be anything. It could be reading a book. It could be revising this presentation. It could be, trying to contact people via LinkedIn or something. I don't know, whatever. You can pick. Doesn't matter. But all I know is that if I win those first 3 hours of the day, even if the rest of my day is totally shot, I have already accomplished so much shit. It is incredible. But the reason that I can do that is because it is uninterrupted. And we'll talk a little bit about the science behind that. So here's what you have to ask yourself. I want you to actually do this I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Think about, as a business owner, what is the most valuable thing that you do for your business? Let's pretend, for instance, you only had 2 hours to work in your business all week. 2 hours a week, that's it. What are you going to spend those 2 hours doing? I want you to think about that right now. So now you probably have that thing that you would do for only 2 hours a week if that's all you had. Now, realistically, ask yourself this: how many hours a week do you really spend doing that thing? Most entrepreneurs, unfortunately, answer 0 to 5 hours a week. Some people are really lucky and I've heard as high as 20. But think about that. That's still not even half of your week. And that is the most valuable thing. Don't you want to be spending like 90% of your time doing the most valuable thing? No one is doing that. And it's because of how we're working and that we're constantly interrupted. Here's the science behind this. We check our email or messaging inboxes like Slack and Teams once every 6 minutes. Once every 6 minutes a day. And then we switch tasks twice as often as that, once every 3 minutes. So we might switch from email to Word to a phone call to reading a web page. We do that once every 3 minutes. Think about that for a second. Let's say you had someone painting your house and the guy was painting your living room inside. And every 3 minutes you tapped him on the shoulder and say, hey, can you paint a different room now? Hey, can you paint a different room now? He would punch you in the face. Like, he would be like, are you fucking kidding me? But we are doing the digital equivalent of this every day. How fucking crazy is this? It doesn't even make any sense. So when you block off your time, you get so many less interruptions and you can actually fucking accomplish things. Here's the more science. It takes 23 minutes to return to flow after an interruption. That doesn't mean that you can't switch between activities once every 23 minutes. Of course you can, more often than that. But like when you are crushing it and you're having one of these days where you're just like, oh my God, all this shit is working. And like, I've had so many good insights and I accomplished so much. That is flow. And it takes you 23 minutes to get back into that state every time you're interrupted. And so clearly the average person is in flow 0 minutes a day based on this data, 0 minutes. And interestingly, the people who report the most job satisfaction and enjoying their job the most report being in flow the most. It's not surprising, guys, that this is why we're not getting anything accomplished. We can't think clearly, and we feel like we're shit all the time because we're constantly interrupted. Here's another quote from a different study that I just love. People who multitask all the time can't filter out irrelevancy. They can't manage a working memory. They're chronically distracted. They're pretty much mental wrecks. Huh. That sounds like what I was before I did all this stuff. So, solution number 5. What if I told you there's something you could do in 30 seconds? It literally will take you 30 seconds. It would greatly reduce your stress, give you a full hour a day back, and increase your happiness, the equivalent of a $30,000 annual increase in pay. That's how much happier you would be. Are you interested? It literally takes 30 seconds. Here's what it is. Delete social media from your phone. I'm not saying delete your account completely. Here's my recommendation. You delete it from your phone so you're not tempted to use it as a distraction, and instead just access it from a computer. Now, this by far is one of the things that I think is hardest for people, because like, oh my God, I need it for my business. I'm going to miss out on things. I like it. And, you know, I'm not saying any of those things aren't true, but here's the thing is you really don't need it on your phone. You can do everything on the computer that you can on your phone, but it's so much less distracting. Guys, this topic is the one that I have researched the most. And I really believe, like I truly believe that 20 years from now, we're going to look at this and be like, what the fuck were we thinking? Like, we are giving kids the, you know, tools to basically just completely destroy their mental health. And like, we didn't even give a shit. I just read right before this call, Facebook or Instagram is going to make a version for kids, like under 12 years old. I wanted to throw up when I saw that. I believe that social media is the cigarette of the 21st century. We're going to look back at this in 20 years and be like, this is super dangerous. We didn't even understand. Now, there's a study that I'm referencing here with all these benefits that was causational, not correlational. They paid people $102 for a month to completely get rid of Facebook and Instagram. So it's not correlational. It is causational, much stronger evidence. Here were the conclusions. The use of social media may detract from face-to-face relationships, reduce investment in meaningful activities, increase sedentary behavior through more screen time, lead to internet addiction, and erode self-esteem through unfavorable social comparison. I mean, if there's anything that sounds fucking horrible, I don't know what would sound much more horrible than that. Now, here's why this is damaging to people. So pretend that you're public speaking like I am now, but in live in front of a group of, 500 of your most close friends. Well, you're nervous about like, oh, are people going to like me? Are they going to think that I look cool? Am I going to make a mistake? Are they going to say something bad behind my back? Like, that's why public speaking is one of the most terrifying fears for people, because there's this social pressure. Well, using social media is the psychological equivalent for people of public speaking all day, every day, all the time. You're worried about, is there going to be a bullying comment? How many likes am I going to get? Do people think I look cool? And it's super, super, super bad psychologically. Another scary thing, the greater your level of Facebook addiction, the lower your brain volume. Here's what happens. Social media activates this very primal part of our brain called the amygdala, which is responsible for emotional regulation and like anxiety and fear and all these very primal instincts, which we again need to survive. But if you use Facebook too much, that becomes too activated, and the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that controls executive functioning and intelligence and intelligent thought, gets turned off. And that is, so when this gets turned off, you use it less, and that is why your brain shrinks. How fucking crazy is that? It is literally changing our brain chemistry on a very extreme level, and no one gets this. The thing that I think is the most sad though, compared to all these things, is in this study, it showed that when you use social media for that 1 hour a day, a lot of the time that you take away from is time when you're with friends and family in person. So this study showed that you literally spend less time with the people you love in person to be on fucking social media. Is that really what we want for humanity? That's really sad to me. It's really sad. I know that I've gone over some of this stuff, but hopefully some of this information was new for you, and hopefully it's blowing your mind a little bit at least. So let's go to solution number 6. Now, I actually used to have this say delete Slack and Teams, and I know that people really lose their mind when I suggest this. So what I revised it to say is to silence it, meaning do not put any notifications on, including the chat function, which I'm sure a lot of you have been like, but I use the chat function. But let me explain why this is really bad. And again, I know people are starting, like, this is where people get pretty defensive. Like, no, I need Slack. It's like my right arm. I need it. Okay. And I get that. But let's talk a little bit again. So remember that the average person spends 61% of their week doing busy work bullshit that doesn't provide fucking value, and 39% of their week doing their actual job. All right, we already established that. Here's the other thing, though, that you might not realize. When there's a high level of interaction, which means like people collaborating, right, which is basically all your firms, in an industry, there's a tenfold difference, a 10x difference, financial performance-wise, from the shittiest firms to the best firms, tenfold. So you might say to yourself, well, what do I need to do to be one of the 10x firms? And basically you just have to let your workers do their fucking jobs and not be distracted and actually get their real jobs done and not do this busy work bullshit stuff. But here's what's happening for most people. In the absence of clear indicators of what it means to be productive and valuable in their jobs, many knowledge workers turn back toward an industrial indicator of activity, doing lots of stuff in a visible manner. What does this look like? Answering Slack messages, answering emails, having bullshit meetings that don't really need to be had. And again, all those things mean we're spending 61% of our day doing nothing valuable. Now, you might say, okay, Rob, I get it, but you know what? I'm just going to outwork. I'm just going to outwork the busy work bullshit. I'm just going to work harder, and then I'm going to make up for it. The answer is, unfortunately, you cannot do that. A lot of studies, and there's many of them, show that employee output falls off sharply after 50 hours a week. And after 55 hours a week, it drops off a fucking cliff. You basically might as well not be doing anything after 55 hours a week. Even if you think you are, you're not doing anything productive. You're not. And so you would look at this and say, well, okay, I feel I understand that. I also just have a quote here. I love this analogy. Group chat, like Slack and Teams, is like being in an all-day meeting with random participants and no agenda. I mean, if you think about that, that's really silly, right? Like what person on earth would attend that meeting? But that is exactly what group chat is. It really is. And the last thing that I know I've said before, but I just want to reemphasize is, in general, Slack and Teams don't replace email. They add to it. So if you came to me and said, you know what, Rob, I'm going to use Slack, but I'm never going to use email ever again in my whole life, I'd be like, amazing. If you can somehow do that, amazing. Like, I would 150% be on board with Slack being a great tool, but it's impossible. It doesn't work that way. Now you have two systems to check, two ways to communicate, two sets of notifications. It's just, again, adding to all this extra busy work bullshit that you think you need and you don't need it. So I really want to emphasize, we haven't even come to the thing that I think is most difficult for people yet. So I just want you to know that I really want you to keep an open mind when you hear this next one. I think one of the biggest game changers for me by far was completely deleting email from my phone. Completely. I don't have a Gmail app on my phone. I don't use the Apple Mail. I just don't have it. I don't have it on my phone at all. There's no way to access it. Let's say there was some emergency and I needed to get directions from something in an email. Then maybe the once a week that I need to do that, I go to the web browser, I type in gmail.com, I access Gmail from the web browser, and then I close it. Okay, so there's still a workaround. It's not like I can at all absolutely access it, but I don't have the app, right? No apps. So let's talk a little bit about why email is, other than social media, the most addictive technology. Here's the science and psychology behind this. There's two main reasons why email is addictive. The first one is its intermittent variable rewards, which is exactly the same principle as why slot machines are addictive. When you pull a handle, you're not sure if you're going to win or how much or what the numbers or the reels are going to show. And so that is very interesting to people, right? And generally, if you win less than 50% of the time, there's this anticipation and this dopamine hit when you win. So it's like very motivating for people. Well, email, if you think about it, is exactly the same way. I check my inbox. I don't know how many emails I'm going to have. I don't know who they're from, and I don't know what they're about. So there's this very strong psychological component to it. But the other thing that makes it far more addictive than most technologies is that there's social reciprocity. So if I email George, even if George doesn't like me or he barely knows me, but at least he does know who I am, George feels obligated to respond because our social rules and society deems that if someone wants to talk to you, you should respond back, which I understand that, right? Like it's a social construct that we have. But this then makes you very obligated to answer people, even if you don't want to, or even if it's not something super important or timely. And so the main thing that people need to realize with email is that, and this is the hardest thing in the whole presentation here. So I don't mean this to be personally offensive to you, but you are not that fucking important. You just really aren't, okay? Like you just need to hear that and understand that and believe that, because if you can disable your ego and trust your team, you will get away from this email, the pull of the email. Here's the example I give too, right? Steve Jobs passed away over a decade ago. Well, he was a tech visionary, obviously. Well, Apple became the world's most valuable company after Steve Jobs was not present for a decade. So if Apple can become the world's most valuable company without Steve Jobs, I guarantee you that you and your clients and your company were going to be okay if you don't check your email every 2 fucking minutes. All right, I promise you. But people cannot get over this. Like this is clearly one of the most difficult things for people to understand, like to psychologically let go of. One of the main ways to receive less email is just simply sending less email. And what that involves is just checking your email less frequently and time boxing, like I said in solution number 4. Here's another way of thinking about this. If you have an email app on your phone and you're checking it all the time, that's like having an open notification to the whole world for everyone else to dictate your schedule and how you spend your time. I don't know about you guys, but I want my time to be controlled by me, not the rest of the fucking world. And so I don't want to be controlled by all these other, solicitations or notifications in my inbox all the time on my cell phone. It's just silly. So let's say you don't even care about that. Well, average typing speed on phones is 38 words a minute compared to 52 words a minute on a computer. So even if you just simply changed all your messages to being on a computer, you save 27% of your time answering email because you're type faster for the average person. Now, we already said that the average professional spends 28% of their workday reading and answering email, which according to that McKinsey analysis, that's 2.6 hours a day. I have looked up more contemporaneous data for this, and some data shows that it's close to 4 hours a day now checking email. 4 hours. Is your job title professional email answerer? Like, I know that I say that kind of sarcastically, but like, is it? I mean, because that's kind of what people are doing today. Like the average person is a fucking professional email answerer. This is like mind-blowingly stupid to me. Just ridiculous. Now, let's say you don't care about any of that stuff. Well, a 2015 study showed that adults who check their email infrequently report lower levels of stress, better overall well-being, and better performance at work. I don't know how many other ways I can tell you that like checking your email is bad for you all the time, but people still do this so much. It's insane. So solution number 8, the last one I have for you guys, and I just want to so we have about 10 minutes left, 15 minutes left, is restore human connection. And this one to me is the most near and dear to my heart, and really the reason why I created this company. So here in this study of all this stuff, I've also read a lot about happiness and read a lot of books about this stuff, but let me just try to summarize many books for you. The greatest contributor to our happiness as humans is the quality of our relationships. The quality, it's not the number, it's the tightness, the amount of trust, and the quality of relationships we have with other people. As you guys saw from the initial activity, our most meaningful moments in life, they don't involve fucking technology. We've lost sight of this though. It's so crazy. Here's some more data for you. The mere presence of a cell phone, it doesn't, even if it's turned off and face down, right? Turned off and face down, if there's a phone between you and someone else, it reduces feelings of empathy, trust, and closeness. That's really sad to me. Think about how many people are not present with their significant others when they're having dinner at a restaurant or when they're with their best friend talking about something because their cell phones are out. It's really sad. Human voice and touch release oxytocin, which is a chemical that calms us down. Now, we don't get this from emailing or texting. So here's the implication. If you text your mom, "I love you, Mom," that is very different chemically and physiologically than if you're talking with your mom on the phone and she says, and you say, "Mom, I love you," over the phone. That is also chemically different than if you go to your mom and give her a hug in person and say, "I love you, Mom." All three of those things are chemically different and we respond differently as humans. And what is the direction that all this shit's going? Everyone wants to just type shit in fucking email and text instead of doing stuff face to face. This to me is like the nexus of why this is damaging society. It's really crazy. And by the way, I really wish I was in front of you guys in person for this presentation. And if it wasn't Corona, I would be happy to do it. Or if you want me to chat with you about this in person, I'm happy to do that because I really prefer that over Zoom. Another thing is I went back and looked at this data. The amount of time we spend socializing each day has dropped 18% compared to 2003. That's about 1% a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but where are we going to be in 20 to 30 years? No one's going to want to talk about anything. We're not going to want to socialize at all. So a couple of things that are super sad to me, the average American has not made a friend in the last 5 years. That's one of the most sad statistics that I came across in this whole researching all this stuff. And if you just think about this from a kind of logical standpoint, 5,000 years ago, most of us spent time in our tribe with groups of 5 to 50 people. And if we weren't hunting and gathering, what were we doing? We were socializing. We have millions of years of evolution that led us to socialize, and we're not doing that anymore. Obviously, to me, that doesn't seem like it's a good equation for us to be happy as humanity. And if I had to summarize this problem in 4 words, it's software is eating humanity. That's what I really believe. Now, there's so many other things in this entire process that I've learned about that I have not put in this presentation, but there's stuff like nighttime habits, impacts on children, sleep, impacts on teens, video games, YouTube, online bullying, mindfulness practices related to technology, advertising and consumerism, rise of individualism in the United States and erosion of communities, increasing income disparity, comparisons to technology addiction and smoking, and our poor societal values that are focused on extrinsic factors in the United States. I literally could talk to you about all of these for each one for an hour, or several hours. There's so much stuff that I've learned about all these things. And so, hopefully it's a little bit more obvious to you guys what's happening now. And what I want us to do is just take a deep breath, right? Because I get that a lot of these things sound anxiety-inducing, and they can be. But the good news is that you can take control of what's happening with your life and change these things. Now, let's talk a little bit about, getting the 1 day back a week that I told you that you'd get. Well, actually, it's not 1 day. It's 20 hours a week. And here's the breakdown. If you delete social media from your phone, that's going to save you about 6 hours a week. Deleting email from your phone saves you 2 hours a week based on faster typing speed in a computer. Reducing news consumption and even just cutting it in half saves you 4 hours a week. Time blocking your calendar should save you at least 4 hours a week by reducing email volume. I also think with that, you're going to feel so much better and the quality of your work is going to go up dramatically. Disabling phone notifications should save you about 2 hours a week if you cut those in half. establishing communication standards, which was the only somewhat arbitrary one on here. I just assume would save you about 2 hours a week. But I think one of the biggest things it's not just the amount of time you save, but how much less stress and improved well-being you're going to have, and just how much better you're going to feel about how you're doing your job. I don't know what that's worth to you. To me, that's worth probably more than the time saved itself, not feeling like shit every day. You can decide what that is. But really, when you add this all up, it is 20 hours a week. Now, you might be like, Rob, that sounds fucking ridiculous. 20 hours a week is crazy. Well, U.S. labor, let's just do a logic check here. U.S. labor productivity has been on the decline since about 2003. So guys, computers and cell phones have not made us more productive. And then the average U.S. worker spends 29 hours of their week on the busy work bullshit that we talked about. That's 61% of a 47-hour week. That's 29 hours. So getting 20 hours a week back seems totally doable. It's totally doable. Here's what I need, guys. I'm happy to, again, talk a lot about this. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Here's what I need, though. I need your help. The only viable business model that I have seen so far is just for me to work with entrepreneurs one-on-one, coaching them. But I'm trying to figure out what's a more scalable way to get more people to use this system. And again, there could be different variations of this, or different, you don't have to use all 8, obviously. Even if, the system could be just predicated on using email differently, which again, I think could save people out many hours a day. I would like your help brainstorming or coming up with ideas with me, because that's the thing here that I don't know. I feel like this information is very valuable, and I feel like it's backed up by a lot of science, but I just don't know what the business model is here. And the last thing I just want to leave you guys with is, think about not only what we could accomplish, but who we could become together if we stop looking at our fucking screens all the time and reconnect with our fellow humans and get back to what made humans human 5,000 years ago. Who could we become together if we all did that? That to me is one of the most meaningful things about all this. I really appreciate your time today, guys, and I would like to just hear feedback, thoughts, anything. I don't need you to filter it. I knew I threw a lot at you.